Hello, my name is Kylie Ceroli, and this is my action research proposal about my research project that I intend on doing with my students in my classroom from January through March in 2024 regarding my science instruction. So, what is my interest in this topic? Well, as a teacher, this is my first year being departmentalized. So, I have a sole focus of only teaching writing and science to my students. With this, I have had so much more time to be able to dive in and really be able to expand and my knowledge and understanding of my content areas. But with that has also come many questions and wonderings on how I could ensure that I was using best practice to help support my students in achieving success. One of the things I noticed in the very beginning of the school year while beginning to teach the science curriculum given to me by my school district was that the curriculum relied heavily on reading text to learn the material and the concepts. Because of this, I was finding that my students were unengaged and uninterested, and I was struggling to get their motivation in learning these science skills. So one of my first wonderings and questions that I had for myself was how could I make science more meaningful and engaging for my students? But there's also the issue of making sure that I'm keeping in line with the curriculum that I'm expected to follow. So with that in mind, I've also been asking myself, what sort of flexibility is there when I have a set timeline, materials, and content to teach? And with that, what can I do to provide more student choice in my lessons and individuality in my teaching while still following the guidelines given to me by my science supervisor in my school district? I want to ensure that my students are coming out successful, and all of these initial wonderings have helped guide and narrow down my thinking and my ideas for my research topic. How could I create something in my classroom that is engaging and meaningful to my students, that involves student choice and individuality, while also still ensuring that I am following and teaching the curriculum as expected? The first thing that came in mind, which is going to be what my research project is about, is assessment. With those initial wonderings in mind, I was able to come up with a set of 5 guiding questions that are going to be able to support me in answering and solving those initial wonderings I had, while also finding more flexibility in my curriculum to create it more engaging and personalized to my students and their needs while still meeting those expectations set by my school district. The first guiding question that I came up with was, what are the needs of students and teachers in science classrooms today? As a new teacher who has a sole focus of teaching science, I want to ensure that I understand the needs of students when it comes to science education. What sort of teaching techniques or strategies help support those students in really grasping and understanding those science skills? Additionally, I want to know what the needs and concerns are from teachers who teach in science to understand what I need to be looking out for and being proactive with when I am teaching science in my classroom as well. My next question was, what are the benefits of content-centered curriculum and how can it be implemented effectively? I have found that the curriculum that I am currently using to teach science in my classroom is a content-centered curriculum. So I want to expand my knowledge of what that curriculum consists of and how it can be implemented in a classroom successfully. Additionally, I was wondering, what does a student-centered curriculum look like and what are the main components of that curriculum? Although I won't be teaching with a student-centered curriculum in my classroom, I could still find ways to adapt components of that curriculum and add it into my content-centered curriculum if that could help make the content more engaging and meaningful to my students. Additionally, in my recent studies, I have been able to learn more about the universal design for learning. So another one of my guiding questions was, what does the universal design for learning look like in a classroom and how can it be implemented? Is it possible for me to include the universal design for learning in the curriculum I'm currently teaching or when it comes to the assessments that I'm giving with my curriculum? And lastly, What is project-based learning, and can it be incorporated into my curriculum? I wanted to know more about project-based learning and if I could incorporate it into my curriculum, especially with my assessments, or if that was something that was not going to work out. With these guiding questions, I was able to form 2 central research questions that I will discuss on my next slide. I have an overall interest in science instruction as a whole. But for this research project, I have centralized my idea down to specifically be about assessment. With that, I have come up with 2 central research questions. My first question is, how do student-centered projects aligned with the Universal Design for Learning impact assessment results for content-centered curriculum taught? I came up with this first question because the curriculum that I am teaching is a content-centered curriculum. So I am curious to know how I could use assessment to make that content-centered curriculum more individualized and meaningful to the students that I'm teaching. So my idea is to use student-centered projects that are connected to the Universal Design for Learning to assess how those assessments can make that content-centered curriculum more easily understood or explained by the students. Additionally, the second question that I came up with was, can I differentiate the assessments to allow for creativity and individuality while still gathering accurate assessment results? At the end of the day, assessment is an important tool that is used in classrooms to ensure student learning and to assess whether or not a skill has been mastered or needs to be retaught. So it's important to me to figure out if differentiating these assessments to allow students to be creative and to personalize those assessments will still yield me in being provided with those accurate results that tell me where my students are and where their level of understanding is at. What is the significance of this topic? And why is it important for me to expand my knowledge of science instruction and assessment? Well, this is definitely an important topic in today's world because we are living in a world of STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. In today's world, we are seeing an increase of popularity in the idea of STEM. We are seeing an increase in programs, classes, and even schools all about STEM. Additionally, science is often an area of interest for students. Students often are excited for science and have high expectations. But this is also an area that is neglected in schools, especially in elementary schools. In elementary school, there is less focus put on science education because the majority of focus is being put on literacy and math. And with that decrease in focus on this content, there's also often less funding that is allocated to science programs or classes. Because of this, it's important to me to make sure that I am understanding how I can best teach these skills and teach this content to my students to keep that interest in science high, to motivate them in being involved in STEM programs or classes, and make sure that my students are getting the education that is possible for them to continue to be successful in school as they progress throughout the grades. Next, I will be summarizing the research that I have done on the following topics which are related to my project. I will be discussing the literature that I've read and analyzed on science instruction, content-centered curriculum, student-centered curriculum, Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, and project-based learning. The first topic to be discussed is science instruction. So, thanks to the rise of STEM, which again stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, science education has become a more talked about and valued subject area. Scientific literacy has been identified as a need in schools all across the United States. This could be due to the fact that science has been a neglected area, especially in elementary schools in the past. Science concepts can be complex and take time to truly understand. Because of that, there is a huge importance on ensuring that we are providing quality science education to students at all levels of schooling. We know that science, like all other content areas, contain a set of skills that progress as you move on to more complex skills and ideas. So it is increasingly important that elementary teachers are providing introductions and education on the beginning science skills so students will be able to be successful as they progress throughout science in middle school and high school. Eric Banelauer and others have suggested that science lessons must be engaging and meaningful to students' lives in order for them to be effective. And to do that means to find ways to connect students' interests to the content that you are teaching while also providing them with opportunities to explore and experience the skills and concepts firsthand. The next topic is content-centered curriculum. This is the curriculum that I am familiar with, as this is the curriculum that I'm teaching and using and basing my science instruction from because it has been provided to me by my school district and science supervisor. Content-centered curriculum focuses on the topic or subject matter at hand. The premise of content-centered curriculum can be described as comprehensive knowledge or skill standards based. The focus of this curriculum is on the knowledge that is being presented to the students and the skills and standards that are being taught to them. The only personalized learning that seems to be apparent in content-centered curriculum is modified pacing or supports. But with this curriculum, the modified pacing is often at a whole group level and isn't individualized to meet the personal needs of students. However, the supports could be at a whole group level, small group level, or even an individual level to meet those personalized and individualized needs of those students. Content-centered curriculum is more focused on the topic and subject area rather than the students' own personal needs. And now, let's discuss student-centered curriculum. On the contrary of content-centered curriculum, student-centered curriculum places its focus on the individual child. With this curriculum, the teacher is seen as a facilitator, not a leader, in the education process of the children. The instruction is meant to be personalized to the individual. With student-centered curriculum, there have been 7 principles identified to explain the goals behind this curriculum. Kaput has described and explained the principles as follows. The first 2 principles identified are positive relationships and whole child needs. Positive relationships, the idea behind that is that students need to know that the adults and the peers in their lives care about them, believe in them, and have high expectations of them. This will allow those students to also believe in themselves and express their own high expectations for their own learning. With whole child needs, all of the needs, the biological needs, the physiological needs, and the safety needs of the students have all been met. So the idea behind that is that for a child to be able to learn and be engaging in the instruction, all of their other needs must be met for them to be able to focus and participate. The next 2 principles of student-centered curriculum are identity and ownership. So the idea behind identity is that they need to have a positive identity and that they need to have developed a sense of belonging and feel like they are valued for who they are. This will help increase their confidence to participate and express their ideas and thoughts in the classroom. Additionally, there's student ownership. So with this principle, the students in the classroom are provided with multiple opportunities to choose to pursue their own interest in their learning. The students are still learning the necessary skills and concepts and standards that are needed to be addressed at their level, but the students are being given opportunities to choose how they're going to pursue their interests that are connected to those skills and standards. Next is real-world relevant ties. So with this, the students are shown how the content they are learning can tie in and connect with the skills and problems that they're learning in the classroom. So these real-world relevant skills are being tied in, so the students are solving real-world problems while learning those skills that they are required to learn in school. The next principle is competency progression. So with this, students do not move on to learn the next skill or move on to learn the next concept until they have demonstrated mastery of the current skill or concept they're working on. This varies greatly from content-centered curriculum. With content-centered curriculum, the focus is on the curriculum and not the individual child. With student-centered curriculum, students in the classroom may all be working on different skills or different concepts at a time because they will not move on to the next one until they have demonstrated mastery of their current one. And lastly, the final principle of student-centered curriculum is anytime, anywhere. With this principle, the idea behind it is that students in the learning environment are learning everywhere and not solely in the classroom. So they are learning in their community through internships. They're learning on the weekends or during extracurricular activities. Their learning is taking place in multiple different areas of their life and not solely in the classroom. What is UDL? UDL stands for the Universal Design for Learning. This framework strives to give every student an equal opportunity at success and learning. UDL is a flexible framework that can offer differentiation in instruction techniques, materials being offered to students, and in their assignments and assessments. The Universal Design for Learning wants to increase motivation and interest in learning by making it more accessible to all learners and providing students with choice to make school interesting and meaningful to them. There are 3 guidelines to UDL. They are engagement, representation, and action and expression. Engagement is the why in learning. This is where teachers can provide choice and autonomy by allowing students to study topics that engage their interests. The next guideline is representation. This guideline focuses on the what of learning. This is where teachers are meant to differentiate the way they are presenting information to make sure it's accessible and obtainable by all students. This could mean to provide students with handouts that have enlarged text to support them in reading it, or including visuals in your instruction to support your visual learners. And lastly, the last guideline is action and expression, which is the how of learning. This is where teachers can provide options in how students complete a learning task or demonstrate their understanding. This is also where teachers can provide supports like assistive technology devices that can help students in completing the task or assignment. The goal of the Universal Design for Learning is to make learning more accessible and meaningful to every student. Next up is project-based learning. Project-based learning, sometimes referred to as PBL, is a teaching method that engages students to actively participate in a real-world and personal project. Throughout these projects, students are working together to solve a problem or answer a question. These students demonstrate their understanding by creating a project or presentation. Project-based learning takes place over an extended amount of time. During this period of time, students are investigating a question, problem, or challenge. It was through this research into project-based learning where I learned that this was not going to be an area that exactly aligns or works with my research project. The project students will be able to create will not be something that they are investigating, nor will it take place over an extended amount of time. Instead, those students are being asked to demonstrate their learning that has already taken place. But learning more about project-based learning was still a meaningful topic for me to dive into. I was very happy to learn more about this teaching strategy, and project-based learning could be a next step in improving my science instruction after learning more about my current interest, which is in assessment. Here is my timeline for my research project. The proposed research will take place during the months of January through March. The research will begin in January when the students come back from winter break. It will begin with the students learning our third science unit, Life Science. The learning will take place over several weeks. The normal science instruction will be taking place throughout January and February. At the conclusion of the unit in March, the students will be assessed on their knowledge of the key concepts learned throughout the unit, and then I will be able to analyze and assess the results of those assessments. Now, let's discuss the logistics of this research. Where and when will this research be taking place? The research will be taking place within one of Franklin Township Public School District's elementary schools. The elementary school where this research will be taking place is Hillcrest Elementary in Somerset, New Jersey. The research will be conducted in my 4th grade science classroom. The research that will be done from January throughout March will be taking place during my science period classes that last for about 40 minutes. The participants in this study will consist of my usual classes of students that I see for science daily. The first class consists of 17 students. 6 of those students are boys and 11 of them are girls. Of those 17 students, 5 of them are Hispanic, 2 of them are white, 8 of them are Black or African American, and 2 of them are Asian. All of the students in this class are between the ages of 9 and 10. And 2 of the students in this classroom have IEPs and are in a special education classroom for all other times of the day. All of their IEP needs and goals will be met during our normal instruction times. My second class consists of 14 students. 4 of those students are boys and the other are 10 girls. Of those 14 students, 7 of them are Hispanic, 1 of them is Asian, 1 of them is white, and 5 of them are Black or African American. Like my first class, all of the students in class 2 are 9 to 10 years old, and there are no students with IEPs or in a special education classroom in my second class. The focus of this research is all about assessment. So, how will I be collecting data? The students participating in this research will be coming from 2 of my science classes, Class 1 and Class 2. Those participants were discussed previously. Those 2 classes will receive the same instruction throughout our life science unit, as that is not the focus of the research. However, at the end of the unit, the classes will be assessed using different methods. Class 1 will receive the usual standardized test that they will complete on their Chromebooks. The standardized test will consist of multiple choice and open-ended response questions focused on all of the key concepts and skills taught throughout the unit. Class 2 will not be taking a standardized assessment. They will receive directions to complete an open-ended project. Students in Class 2 will receive guidelines on what information they need to show knowledge and understanding of, but they will have the freedom to choose how to present and display their knowledge. For example, those students in Class 2 can create a poster, PowerPoint, essay, picture, or whatever else they decide to show their understanding of the content. Both classes will be assessed using the same criteria and rubric. They will both be asked to display their knowledge of all the same content. The only difference is that one class will have the choice in how they show that knowledge, while the other class needs to show their knowledge and understanding through a standardized test that has been created for them. I will be collecting documents for my assessment of this research. I will be collecting the results of the class that took the standardized test and collecting the graded rubrics of the students who completed the open-ended project. I will be using these collected documents to expand my understanding of this experience and analyze my noticings of the results from the two classes. As explained by Sharon M. Kolb from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, USA, triangulation is a technique that is used to increase the fidelity of research through multiple data collections. I will be collecting data on my students who completed the standardized assessment and the students who completed the open-ended assessment. With this topic, there will be no ethical issues associated with this research. All students will be receiving the same instruction, materials, and time in class. The only difference that will be across the classes that I will be working with will be with how they are being assessed. Their assessment grade will not affect their overall grade in the class. Additionally, if students from one class are upset that they were not able to be creative with their assessment like the other class was, I will allow those students the same opportunity during our intervention and enrichment block after they have finished their online assessment and I have gathered all assessment scores. The only issue that could come up with this research project is the fact that students might be upset that they were not given the opportunity to be creative and come up with their own project to explain their learning. So, like I mentioned, I will be giving them that opportunity after they have completed their other assessment and I was able to analyze and compare my own assessment results.